Hi, I'm Jake, and today we have a special treat for you, an interview with a good friend of the channel's, Ben Jurek, who just recently went 7-1 at the GW Open. If you're new to the channel, what we like to do here is primarily cover competitive 40K content as well as host fun and informative battle reports. If you haven't done so yet, we'd love for you to stay subscribed, which greatly helps the growth of the channel, and you get to stay up to date on all the content that we put out. I opted to sit this interview out myself because orcs aren't my specialty, so we have our very own Josh Jenny who's going to be conducting the interview with Ben. Now Josh is definitely better suited for this because he had a fantastic run with orcs in 8th edition, so he speaks the WOG language.
I only did okay with orcs, Jake, but I'm here with the war boss himself, the man, the myth, the legend, current #1 orc player, fresh off of a 7-1 at Dallas, Ben Jurek.
Dallas.
I'm sorry, Seattle.
I was in Washington, sir.
I mean, they're not similar at all.
It's fine.
All the coverage has been for Dallas lately, kind of, but then Seattle, I don't know. They were back-to-back, weren't they?
They were back-to-back.
Okay. So it kind of merged together. But yes, Seattle at the, what is it, GW?
The GW US Open.
Okay.
The first one in 2022, first of 4.
Nice. So 7-1, you won the second bracket, and you missed out on the first bracket by just 1 point.
Yeah, I had 355 points, number 17. I was talking to Alex McDougall and such after I finished my game, and we're just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure, and we were pretty sure I was locked in because I was going to be within the top 16. And then one of the groups drew. And then on top of that, I thought I still made it. I was number 16, and then we realized somebody didn't report their score until like 20 minutes after the round. And it finally kicks me down to 17. And I had this like little bit of a heartbreak moment during lunch break, and I'm just like, well, gosh dang it. And I'm looking back at my games like, it's 1 engage point. It's 1. Like there are so many places I saw where I could have made up the points. And mind you, I had 2 100-point games at this point. So it was a little bit rough, but then I went on to have that be my only loss, which is round 4, and then continued to just win the rest of my games, win my bracket, and it definitely ended up working out in my favor.
I was watching on Best Coast Pairings on my phone during lunch, and I saw you at top 16, and I saw the score that wasn't submitted. And I don't know if this is appropriate. I was in the bathroom on my phone, of course.
You were pooping.
I was pooping, and I was like, come on! And then it didn't happen. So, yeah, no, that's an incredible performance, especially since, you know, a lot of people are really, myself included, you know, the memes about how orcs are not that great anymore. But you're out there proving people wrong. I believe there's another orc player who's also proving people wrong.
Yeah, Marshall was up there. Me and him have ran into each other before. He's from Utah. He was playing Blood Axes. So we talked tech, and we were really excited for each other. He did make the cut to 16. He got featured a little bit there. So
going back, before we talk about the bracket system, just, you know, to hype up this guy who I've known for, what, 13 years now? 14 years? I don't know.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. About your orc credentials. So we started Warhammer like 2017. I got a bunch of orcs, so I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then you just went on to, you know, win a lot. So, I mean, just so everyone knows that he knows what he's talking about, you've won quite a few GTs with orcs.
Won a couple GTs. I've podiumed a bunch of events. I've been top 3 in super majors. When I played team tournaments, I'm usually the orc guy. I cut my teeth in 8th edition by making my own innovative lists, with the original freebooter list. Yeah, I've kind of been one of those guys in the orc community. I get a lot of people messaging me about orcs all the time, and orcs have just been my thing. I've chosen to make that my particular brand, and I try to stay loyal. It's been very difficult lately to stay loyal, mind you.
Yeah.
But still doing it. It's just a harder road sometimes.
Yeah. So speaking of, why it was difficult, tell me, so how do you feel about the, the orc nerfs that happened, especially the big piece that came out, the, what is it called? It's not the FAQ, it's the
balanced data slate.
The balanced data slate that I just, I bought 9 Shadow Weavers and then literally the day after it changed for the better of the game. But yeah, tell me about the balanced slate.
The balanced data slate, for the most part, was extremely beneficial to orcs, but only the fact that it tuned down the OP armies. It didn't actually benefit orcs at all outside as far as buffing orcs. It just made the really good armies that orcs couldn't beat a little less good. So it gave them a fighting chance, with one exception, and that is the Armor of Contempt rule that has come out. And it's honestly just terrible for orcs, at least regular orcs. In 9th edition, Orc Choppas all got -1 AP. The entire community rejoiced. We were grateful. It was the best thing ever.
I was grateful. I played for the 2
and
weeks
now,
of Orcs.
against literally half the armies in the format, it does nothing.
Yeah, the kind of a weird arms race with GW where they're like, hey, because tracing back, when I played Orcs, the 2-up armor save was the enemy because you're just throwing
AP 0. It's kind of back to the old days. But with the list I brought a lot of neg 3 AP. I brought a lot of AP, a lot of different multi-damage weapons. So there were times where Armor of Contempt was definitely noticeable. I played Thousand Suns 3 times during the event, and it definitely, things are a lot harder to move. Like, I have entire Beast Naked Boy groups that can't even kill like more than 3 rubrics. It is an absolute wall to beat your head against when you're swinging the old -1 AP. So
yeah.
Armor Contempt does make a difference. It is something to be aware of. Thankfully, a lot of those armies are kind of middle of the road as far as overall competitiveness, but you are going to run into them.
Yeah, so you have to have a plan. Speaking of plans, so any other comments on on it before we move on?
With as far as indirect fire goes, the squig buggies already have a +1 to hit, so getting a -1 hit on them when they're truly shooting indirect, you can probably gain line of sight in most things you want to do anyway. When you're doing no line of sight, you have enough volume if you bring a full 3 of them to still do something. So didn't hurt them that much. The kill rigs have an indirect, but hitting on 6s, so it made that gun irrelevant unless you can actually see it. Or you're shooting a vehicle, because Beast Snake is a +1 hit vehicle. So I'm using my the Tremor Shell stratagem a little bit less off the kill rigs.
What's Tremor Shells do again?
It has movement, gives -2 to charge.
Okay.
I don't believe it's actually called Tremor Shell. I call it Tremor Shell because it's from Thunderfire Cannon, but co-equal terms. So there's a couple of small things I got hit with that, but honestly, compared to what other people's no LOS shooting does, it's beneficial. Because now I'm no longer having to worry about other people's no LOS stuff. I can hide a group of grots behind something on an objective and not have them, completely get obliterated, stuff like that. So honestly, I think that kind of evened itself out. Not too angry about that. Orcs are definitely not dead. They still have a lot of tools, and I used many of those tools this weekend.
Awesome. I know people were kind of ringing the death knell for squig buggies, but you still have them in your list, it looks like.
No squig buggies this
list.
list.
Not squig buggies. Scrapjets.
I got the Scrapjets. Scrapjets, the best thing, as far as my list goes, before we go into the super big details about it, is everything in it is good. There's nothing in it that needs play up another synergy. There's no compound. Pound for pound, every unit in it is good. With the exception of Gretchen. Gretchen suck.
They still hold objectives and they screen.
They fill up my patrol.
I will always advocate for trash units. I know Josh
and his trash.
Jake hates it. He's like, why take cultists?
The thing about this list is that I wasn't sure it would do well at a GW event.
I remember that. So I'm sitting on the toilet again, and Ben messages me and he says, I brought the wrong list for this event. It's GW terrain. I have the conversation. We can post it up. I don't remember what he said exactly, but I'm sure I'll paraphrase it. But he's like, this list is not good for this event. I should have brought Fury Buddhas, etc.
That's the thing. I didn't have any practice with GW terrain other than theory crafting and looking at layouts on boards and figuring out what I would do. I didn't know what it looked like physically until I got there. So GW terrain, and I'm sure they'll added up what the two formats look like. There are two setups of GW terrain, and day one they have it one way, and day two they have it another way, based on the missions. They have these large area terrain pieces. There's 4 of them. A couple obstacles in firing lanes, and then the denses are far off on the edges.
Interesting.
So unlike player place, there's no like, I'm going to put dents here and utilize it fully, or perfectly set things up to be on objectives and such. The GW stuff still gives you a lot of coverage on objectives, with the exception of like one mission, which is mission 8, or mission 8 at the event. I forgot what mission it was that we played at the what actual mission it was. There, with few exception, it still covers the majority of the objectives that you have to worry about. And at the same time, there's a lot to work with. Like, most people were still able to hide their armies. Most people were still able to interact in ways that they found meaningful. I do believe you do make some sacrifices if you have a large footprint army, of like, okay, maybe this thing won't be behind obscuring, or maybe this won't be perfectly in place with this objective I want to do over here. So there is some small sacrifices, but they're honestly strategic. They're not like in previous times, or like planet bowling ball situations or stuff like that, where you're like, oh, this terrain's terrible and this is bad for this mission. No, all the terrain matches the missions well. They play just like old school 8th edition, at least on the front side of the terrain, where there's no windows, no nothing. So even if there's physically a window there, so there's actually plenty of times where like stuff could not see each other, which made me bringing a melee army for the most part to be quite beneficial.
Yeah, you know, I hear a lot of complaints about GW terrain, but then from the people who've actually played on it, they say that it's functional.
I like it, and I don't know if I prefer it, but I'm perfectly comfortable playing on it. I have no issues with it. The other big thing about this format is it's a cut to 16 after 4 rounds, versus playing out and going to top 8 after 6 rounds or something like that. This is they play till 4 rounds. And then they take the top 16 players. And it's usually all the undefeateds with a couple X1 cells slip in. As we explained, I had that heartbreak.
Yep.
So they cut to the 16 and they put everybody else in brackets. So bracket 2 will have like 17 to 64 in it, and then bracket 3 will be all the 2 and 2s, and then bracket 4 will be all the 1 and 3s. And then you play people on similar win path to you.
Nice.
And you keep playing as long as you're undefeated, because that's when it's still relevant. You can still win, or win your bracket, essentially. I ended up going undefeated in my bracket and winning it. But the bracket system, some people love it, some people hate it. I'm fine with it, even though like I had the biggest like gut shot that happened at it.
I'm looking at you, Don, for the people who don't like it.
It was a relatively like big gut shot for me, but at the same time, I don't know what other pranks we got. If I had got 16th, my next round, then round 5 is seeded. So I would have to play number 1, which is John Lennon's Tyranids. So I love this list. No way in hell it beats how OP that crap is on top of John Lennon playing it.
Yeah.
Like, I was not going to be winning round 5 if I won round 4. So that's fine. I will take it and just go win my bracket. So I'm happy. Let me go over
Let's talk about
this
the
list.
list.
I would definitely lose to John Lennon's Tyranids.
First thing everyone wants is the list.
So it's a full Goth list. We can't sub-faction anymore. Sad day for the orcs. But full Goths. And it's a balanced list. But it features Gaz. Gaz is a powerhouse. He's a truck. He does everything you need him to do. And he, for the most part, like, he buffs everything. He's great. He's a big problem for armies that can only interact in a couple phases. Love him. Weird Boy. He's honestly there for psychic interrogation. and when you can't cyclically interrogate, he buffs things. But really, he's honestly there to interrogate things or do a ritual. Then we have 2 groups of 10 Snake Boys. They go inside kill rigs, which leads me into 2 kill rigs. These things in tandem, kill rigs are a Swiss Army knife. They have shooting, they have melee, they're a psyker, they're a character.
They're only a few points more than Demon Prince.
They are character, meaning that the wah, which you get both sides of because you have gas, means that they can advance and charge. Ooh. So you can move 18 inches and then charge 3d6. So you have a 30-inch threat range on those on very high rolls, or reasonably a 20-some inch threat range across the board. So you can cross 24-inch no man's lands and kill things.
Wow.
So they do it all, and when they die, they poop out 10
I
boys.
was literally about to say that. That's impressive. I love killer eggs.
The MVPs were my Mega Nubs. They are Truck Boy Mega Nubs. They're not Goth. When you make them a Truck Boy, but as a specialist Truck Boys, they lose their clan trait. And these things were honestly the best thing on my list. They're the thing that caught everyone by surprise. They're the thing that applies to pressure. They are wave number 1 of 3 as far as how things roll into your opponent, because this is a very high pressure list, very aggressive list. There with Goths and Orcs, there is no breaks. It is go, which is why I 100'd my first 2 opponents, because you just go. There's no stopping.
Kind of want to play Orcs now. Again.
Followed in that is you have the Claw Boss, who's also a Truck Boy. He buffs the other Truck Boys. He gives them +1 to hit. And he's got a Relic Claw, and he has the Brutal Butt Cunning. So same thing as Competitive Edge, where anything that doesn't go to damage, you get to try again. So he's fantastic with a flat 3 damage Relic. 10 Grots, 6 Commandos, a group of Scrap Jets. A lot of people are really confused about this one. I get asked about the Scrap Jets a lot. On most terrain layouts, especially in GW terrain, a lot of stuff gets choked up. You have to have stuff behind something. These guys are great for that, and they have a billion shots of Daka, like 60 shots at their Daka range, with a bunch of rockets. They're great. They're strength 9 when they're charging as Goths in melee. They do everything. And they serve as kind of like a wave 3 of everything, because by the time they don't get shot at, because there's too much pressure and too much threat saturation on your opponent otherwise. And then we have a group of Swig Hogs. Those guys are just handy dandy, really great melee units, incredibly effective at what they do, and they move quick. I have 3 custom mega cannons. Most of those are just hang out my home objectives or my home territory, and give me much needed shooting that the rest of my list doesn't have. And then I have a truck for my Truck Boy Mega Nobs and my Truck Boy Boss. All this together makes a beautiful, aggressive Goth list that I'm very proud of, and ended up doing very well at this event with.
You have what, like 10 to 11 trade pieces going on here that just kind of go in and go
That's the thing, like at the end of the day, everything still dies.
Yeah.
Like I go in and all my crap dies, or my opponent's table, 1 or 2. And they fight back and my stuff dies, but by the time the game is over, most of the time the way the game plays out, I charge my opponent, a lot of their crap dies, they get shoved under deployment, and then they never get to leave their deployment. Ever.
That sounds awesome. So, would you say that you run fast, eat ass?
I would say that
score a million points.
I would say that that this list runs fast, eats ass, scores an absolute bajillion points. You're able to take Stomp 'em Good in this list, which is the orc secondary, where you just, if you kill more in melee, you get points. If you kill double, you get even more points.
Jeez. That's a fantastic secondary.
So it's with this list, it happens to be quite good.
What other secondaries do you usually default to?
Engage in all fronts. It's very common.
Obvious, yeah.
I don't do Stranglehold as much because I don't have a lot of obsec. So sometimes it can be hard to steal something. I do take it. I still take it Stranglehold sometimes, and I take Psych Interrogation.
Nice.
That's my most common when I can.
What about like Grey Knights or Eldar, or armies with a lot of good denies?
Armies a lot of good denies. Depends. Like against Thousand Suns, if I have 2 objectives to sit on, take banners.
Oh yes. It's like you have a Thousand Suns friend who.
Yeah, but like if an army's gonna be sitting their deployment, I'll take banners. Rarely I'll take R&D, but I am set up to be able to do it. It's just I don't have enough action units to really do it effectively, so I don't always count on scoring that. If my opponent takes it to the last or has an assassinate, this is a really good list to go get it, even if it's against a list that typically could defend those things. Like, it's really easy for me to get in the characters.
They can only run so...
Yep.
They can only run for so long, especially when you got, 20 Snagaboys popping out of 2 kill rigs, and Gazcool, which he needs multiple phases to kill, doesn't he?
Yep, he only takes 4 wounds a phase.
Jeez.
And he's also 2-up 4-up invuln, so like you have to dedicate you have to dedicate shooting into him to kill him.
So speaking of armies that have to over dedicate and cannot kill Gaz, let's talk about your matchups.
So round 1, I played Matt Bateman. He's a local from the Kent area, so Kent is a suburb outside of Tacoma, Seattle. He was playing Tau. A relative average Tau list, like a couple Kaisasuit blobs, some broadsides, some Kroot. I got to go first roll, and just to preface this a little bit, I had not played 40k since March. I had gotten sick the week beforehand. I couldn't get any reps in. I was on the plane telling Josh I brought the long list. I was texting Mark Perry from Art of War, because we go back and forth on Orc stuff all the time, like, hey, what am I doing here? And I'm just like, I'm still kind of like not knowing what I'm doing. I don't have my footing yet. And then I proceed to 100 to 10 him on this
Must be nice to be able to play without practice and do well.
And a lot of my games play out the same. It's my truck, my Meganobs are a missile. They go do a thing. And this, they had no meat to get into because all the stuff was deployed far out of range. But he had pre-deployed some Kroot up into an objective that was inside a piece of terrain. So when I fought it, he couldn't see me. So I killed all his Kroot with my Meganobs. My Meganobs sat on that objective in terrain. Gaz took the center objective. It was the Scouring. Gaz took the center objective and said, "You're not killing me anytime soon," because Tau physically can't. Not without 3 turns of work. So he just moves up there, and the rest of my army pushed up, killed a few things in shooting, and then he did his return fire. Didn't do a whole lot, and then I killed him, kept him off all his objectives. The one time he tried to R&D, he rolled a 6 on his 5 Vespids because he didn't bring 6 Vespids. Like, it was the worst that could happen. And then I still go and kill those Vespids.
Yeah.
It was a little rude, honestly, to not allow him to get any points at all, but I was...
Give the man his point.
Goffs only have 1 speed, and it's go.
Yeah.
So I proceeded to just kill everything, 100, max out everything, get 100.
No, that's really awesome to hear, because I know Tau have been the boogeyman for the last few months. And then, the balance update kind of put them more in line. But how does that matchup play out? Like, what happens if you go second? What's your main strategy against, your generic meta Tau list?
Honestly, throw Gaz into threat range of as many objectives as possible. And you want to be as hidden as you can be. You can be a little bit more conservative in this matchup, and just your waves can kind of trickle in slowly, because once you actually touch them, everything dies. So it's not too concerning. It's a really easy army to get psychic interrogation against. It's a really easy army to just kind of dominate with your main centerpiece model. And with GW terrain, you can actually hide a decent amount of your stuff, and have them and kind of force them into positions and play a game of chess of just like, okay, if you want this, you have to come over here to get it, but then you're in threat range of these things. And
melee armies do that so well. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So your second matchup, you also scored 100 points against some kind of Astra Militarum and Admech Soup.
Yeah, Peter Venner's list is actually featured on one of FLG's podcasts, their Thursday night stream that they do. Peter Venner's list was featured on that.
Hi, Peter.
So Peter Venner, he brought a Shadow Sword, so he calls it a meme list. So he's playing. He had a Shadow Sword, 2 tank commanders, and a bunch of robots, and they are the fisty robots too.
Okay.
With a smattering of infantry and such. And this was a match I actually deployed a bit more conservative on. He had deployed his tank commanders on one corner, and with the way GW terrain is, you can kind of deploy in the other corner, and they're not going to get an angle on you. And I was like, okay, this is a list I can honestly just like pick up the majority of my stuff in a turn. I'm gonna play this safe. So I played safe. I deployed my stuff on like my back line, which unusual. If you can, you deploy in the front line. Like you're not actually honestly afraid they're shooting, or you're not gonna lose a lot of points in shooting. You deploy you can just put everything on the front and go. With this, I played in the back, and he rolled his Shadow Sword at me to get a precarious angle on a kill rig and just deleted the kill rig. So he went first. A little scary. I was just like, okay, losing 200 some points, turn one, not that bad.
That's not bad.
I'll deal. And since he rolled his Shadow Sword out into the front of the board, Gaz went and ate it.
I was just gonna say that seems like a pretty crazy extension to kill a kill rig when you. I mean, how many points is a Shadow Sword? Like 400, 500?
Yeah, 400 something.
Oh man, that's rough. But you know, most people look at an Astra Militarum and AdMech list and kind of just be like, oh no, this isn't. You know, they'll look at it and they'll underestimate it. But I think you did the smart thing.
He had some counterpunch elements. I had swung out to the left side of the board with my Mega Knobs and killed all his infantry, and then his elements couldn't be split between to deal with both Gaz and this element. So it kind of forced him into a rough position where he couldn't deal with both. And eventually, I actually didn't let my Clombos go out on the first time because I didn't need him to fight off to help the Mega Knobs. So I then just moved the truck again. So that's like an 18-inch move for a war boss.
Jeez.
And then threw the war boss into a tank commander.
Oh.
So by the time the tank commander died, it was basically GG. And it was another high point win.
Awesome. So the next one is a match that I'm very interested in. Thousand Suns. You played 3,000 Suns players at this event.
Out of 8 rounds, I played 3,000 Suns.
And they were all undefeated, I think?
When I played them, they were all undefeated at the time I played them.
Awesome. And, you know, Thousand Suns, one of the biggest winners from Armor of Contempt. Of course, it happens right as soon as I stop playing Thousand Suns. But, yeah, tell us about your third matchup against Thousand Suns.
So I played Nicholas. This was actually on stream. So Nick Nanavati pulls us up. He goes, "Oh, this will be an interesting game," and throws us up on stream. My opponent's a little bit nervous. We take our time. So that game actually they cut the stream because we had gone over the time in the official time in the round, but it takes time to set up a stream, so you still have time to finish. He asked a few questions. He asked the correct questions. I was like, and I'm very honest, I don't play Gotcha Hammer. I'm like, all this stuff moves fast. Here's what this moves. Here's what this moves. And he deploys in a pretty basic manner, and honestly, a very good manner, if you don't consider that Truck Boy Mega Knobs exist.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because when you were telling me, you know, while I'm sitting on the toilet getting text updates.
How often are you on the toilet?
Not that regular, you know, so like twice a day.
This video alone
after breakfast and during lunch, you know, when I need Warhammer updates, that's where I go, I guess. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so he deploys like directly behind the big obscuring main pieces, and I'm not able to see a goddamn thing. And this is one where there's no center objective.
Oh, that's rough.
So it's the 3 on each end hammer and anvil style. So it's long deploy, had to long bomb it to get to him. And I'm still able to get the Truck Boy Mega Knobs into his Scarabs turn 1 and kill 7 of them.
Through ooh, that's rough. Because they ignore the first... So yeah, that's going through 4-ups, right? 4-ups are swingy though.
But and I make my Mega Knobs swing 3 damage with a stratagem.
Nice.
So for every fail, it's a dead scarab. And it was in a way where there's like a Rhino and a Hellbrute. I couldn't get all my Mega Knobs into it, so I had to dump other stuff into a Hellbrute and the Rhino. My Warboss fails to kill the Hellbrute. He rolls nuts on his 5-ups.
Wow.
And with the -1 damage and Armor of Contempt, Armor of Contempt didn't make too much of a difference because it's 5-up either way. He just champs, and then the Hellbrute turns around and kills my boss. So that was a weird flip. On the other side of the board, I make an 11-inch charge with my Squig Hogs.
Amazing.
And
Pull a
then,
Jake on that.
well, it is like just around 12. It was within 12 inches. I rolled an 11. I make it.
Nice.
And kill a halberd. So I'm deep in his deployment on both sides, and I keep him on his back foot the entire time. He actually fights me back the best out of almost any of my opponents, with the exception of my loss in my last round. He's actually able to claw back and nearly win the game between all the psychic powers, everything else, just push me back, rezzing dudes. But I had too much board control. I pinned him back, scored too many points, and by the time we hit round 5 or turn 5, he wasn't able to win.
That's crazy. Yeah, I know personally from playing Thousand Suns that once you get those aggressive melee armies inside of you, if you can't smite them off, or if you don't have a melee counter charge like Bellicor or Abaddon, but then you're getting into soup, it's really hard to dig out of that hole. So, and especially losing 7 Scarabs turn 1, that's rough.
He was a very good opponent. A little bit tilted by what happened with that. He just didn't realize how this is the trend of the event. He didn't realize what Truck Boys did.
Yep.
And very gracious opponent, very good. Nearly said it was ended up being a relatively close game toward the end. But I was still able to hold on by a hair. I made a few play mistakes in that, embarrassingly on stream, like I do. But that's okay. I still won.
Yeah, maybe, the move blocking melee is such an important element of the game. And if you mess it up, then times are hard. So actually a really close game there, 87 to 82. So that's a 5-point game. Those can swing either way. So your next game is your only loss at the event, and that's against Harlequins.
Yep. It was a Dark Harlequins. So a melee army going into an army that fights on death is...
That's not because
your trades are bad.
Normally, and that's that if you're a Dark Harlequin player, because most people play light, but the Dark has a lot of play. I know Jake was considering playing Dark Harlequins just because.
So Matt Johansson, great guy, Team Zero Comp. Beautiful army, and he's also a playtester. So he ends up making the top 16 and placing 10th and getting best overall. Best overall combines your paint score and your overall play score. So he's actually got the golden ticket and got one of the high awards for the event. So he ends up finishing best overall after this. But with the Dark Harlequin matchup, he got to go first. Kind of forgot that Ramshackle was a thing. All he had in his list was shuriken cannons, which versus Ramshackle doesn't do much. He tries to hurt my Truck Boy setup. Doesn't do enough wounds, and I continue to just do my thing. He didn't really kill anything. I was like, okay, cool, my turn. He has 6 bikes in his list. I proceed to kill all the bikes, kill some boats. Things are looking really good, with the exception of one piece that he set up. There are 10 Harlequins that he set up with that advance. I have a 3 at Binvuln. Between Laughing God rerolls and everything else, he proceeds 0 guys decide to die. I killed 4 of them from mortal wounds in the psychic phase and such. And there are 6 Harlequins left, and I dumped an entire kill rig into them. I dumped a bunch of other attacks and Swighog boys. He just does not fail a single save after the rerolls and everything. And it's that ended up being a huge game flip, and couldn't do anything about it. He's a brilliant opponent. He didn't feel like he was going to win as much as he did because he ends up getting 100 against me. And I made a couple mistakes myself. I forgot to disengage Gaz from a troop master because I forgot his entire army fights on death again. And I charged the troop master with boys to kill him before he could activate, but then he activates and kills Gaz anyway.
Yeah, so that's rough.
I made a few mistakes here, and this is the place where if I just don't make one of those mistakes, I make the top 16.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. So This is a heartbreaking match, no matter how we see it. Matt's a great guy. I love talking to the guy. He helps host the Boise Cup, so if anybody wants to go to the Boise Cup, go meet Matt up there. It was a really good game, really good opponent. Couldn't win it though.
So game 4 is really mental. Was game 4 was that all in the same day, or was game 4 the next morning?
Game 4 is the next morning. So I finished going 3-0 in day 1, feeling good. go out clubbing, go to a goth club.
Oh, no.
I'm having a great time. I'm having a great freaking time. But like I play reserved. I'm asleep by 3 a.m.
I wish I could play on no sleep.
And then I'm rolling in to try and win this. So that's another thing. I'd probably would have had 69 points and made 16 if I had not gone clubbing beforehand. I'll probably put that out there. Make better decisions, kids.
Yeah, the goth clubs, though, they call to you, I guess. So a little bit more sleep. Maybe you get a 69, nice, and make top 16. But were you heartbroken after that loss, or were you?
It took a little while for me to recover. I was just like, oh man, and like I realized that would be really hard to hold on to 17th. But I made that my goal.
I mean, you had really high scores, so definitely doable.
I proceeded to take out my rage on my next opponent.
Oh, you know what? Let's talk about your next opponent. It's Tyranids, and as you know, Tyranids right now, currently, as of what's today? May
11th.
May 11th. May 11th, 2022. Tyranids have been just topping everything. Another year of, this year has been broken codices, and yeah. So how did you beat the boogeyman?
So he brought some of the broken stuff, but not all of the broken stuff. He actually went a different direction. He brought 90 gaunts.
Interesting.
The guys that spawn gaunts, I forget their names. Honestly.
Guys that spawn gaunts. That's what they're
But
called.
they spawn gaunts and they have lookouts for as long as they're near gaunts. So he has 90 gaunts. He has 3 of those guys. He's got Harpies, Maliceptor, Neurothropes. Pretty fantastic setup, honestly. And I'm looking at this list. He's looking at my list like, I think it might be one of the only lists I can actually table, man. I'm looking at the list like, you brought a T3 to a strength 6 fight. So he goes first in this one, and those guys can once per game generate 10 more guys. So he move blocks with a bunch of 10-man groups.
How the turntables.
And then he has his big groups of 30. And the secret on the cool part about his list is he can actually heal a total of 6d6 plus something gaunts a turn. So if you don't kill an entire group, he can literally res the entire thing back. It's absolutely nuts. It's a huge carpet of gaunts.
That doesn't cost reinforcement points or anything?
Nope. It is honestly a really good list. It ran into my million shots of Strength 5 Daka and a million different attacks. So I showed him very quickly what a buffed unit of Squighogs can do. One Squighog unit completely wiped 1 to 30s.
Jeez.
I was able to blow out his screen and run around it. He left me a pocket for my truck knobs to run around and get to one of his big guys standing behind the 30 group. So he didn't screen all the way, and I took advantage of a situation that he didn't screen, and I was able to kill one of the big monsters. And then the Maliceptor came.
Yep.
And that thing's stupid.
Yep. Anything. Yeah.
That thing is stupid. And that thing that thing, honestly, it killed most of my stuff off after that. And I still end up winning the game, obviously, but everything I sent in that direction did die in the end. I ended up killing the Maliceptor, thankfully. But that thing is stupid. How it carried his entire army on his back for the 2 turns it existed. So it was rough. That thing sucks. But Nids are incredibly strong. Their psychic phase is stupid. Their shooting phase is good. They're a crazy army. I'm really happy this wasn't the Ravener and Warrior list.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for aspiring war bosses for, if they do play against Tyranids?
Learn your fight phase. There's a lot of ways to out-fight phase these guys, specifically with how you do combat movement and base to base and how many attacks you can put into them versus how many attacks they put back into you. If you can, try and get trash out in front of the Maliceptor. Soak some of the wounds, or stay 12 inches out of it until you're ready to do that type of deal. It's definitely going to be rough times until that army gets nerfed.
Interesting. Well, you ran into one Tyranids, which is good, and you were able to beat it, the boogeyman. So Next match, Zachary Nelson. That's a familiar name to us. Another Thousand Suns player. So what happened there?
I believe you're thinking of a different Nelson. You're thinking of Chris Nelson. But
No, Zachary from Seattle. I know the guy.
oh, okay.
Kind of. We're in a few Thousand Suns chats together.
Well,
I think.
I wasn't familiar with him. Anyway, this is actually, Zach put on a brilliant display of knowing how to move block, knowing how to deploy, knowing how to not let my truck boys do anything. He's my only Thousand Suns opponent that my truck boys didn't get to just run in the scarabs and kill them.
Nice.
And with the way the terrain's set up, I have 32-inch bases. If you're an inch back from the wall, you can't fit your model in between it. So he blocks all of that out, and on that GW terrain, it's perfect because you can only get around like the back of the U unit at that point. So like this, he puts on basically a mastercraft on like how to deploy against me and how to not give anything up. And I'm sitting here looking at this like, I don't know if I can beat this guy. And he's got a really good Thousand Suns list set up. Double Rhino, rubrics, like Armor Contempt is also like just a giant pain in the butt. And these the objectives are in terrain, so like he doesn't need to leave.
He doesn't need to engage you.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
So it was looking very rough, but I was able to get to on my turn 1, move up my truck. Run around with my truck boys and my truck boss, get in, kill 2 groups of rubrics, and then own that objective.
Nice.
He counters, but he makes a mistake in his counter and charges his
Scarabs?
charges his scarabs in, which then opens him up to other counter charges. And like there's a couple things that could have gone a little bit better, a couple little small dice failures here and there, but like if he just doesn't make that mistake and like charges me with spawn instead or something like that, I don't know if I win that game. So this game was a lot closer than it was on paper, and he put on a fantastic class, made like 1 or 2 small mistakes, and then I was able to just like to punish those mistakes and win.
Yeah. And that's the rough part about Thousand Suns is that your scarabs need to screen, they also need to move block, they also need to screen characters, they also need to shoot, and they also need to melee, so it's a lot of pressure to put on one unit.
Yeah, my list shooting is basically ineffective against Thousand Suns when they're in cover.
Yeah.
Like they're saving on 3-ups the entire time with Armor Contempt, even when I'm shooting them with like Neg 3 rockets and such like that.
Even the scarabs? Jeez.
Yeah, well, I mean, my Neg 3 rockets go to Neg 2, and they're a 1-up in cover. So that makes it a 3. So like they just, nothing dies. So I have turns where I'm not killing anything, but once again, owning the board.
Yep.
Owning the board control. They can kill me off all they want. I was able to charge a group of Snega boys like through his scarabs into a character, kill the character.
That's big.
And that was basically GG.
What secondaries did you take on that one?
On that one, I took R&D, Stomp 'em Good, and Engage.
Makes sense. Cool. And then round 5, you've got a few Thousand Suns on your farm, and then another Thousand Suns.
Thousand Suns. There were 8,000 Suns out of 202 players. I played 3 of them. Armor of Contempt is just, I'm so sick of it at this point. And I'm just like, well, gosh dang it. And it's Robert Jones. This is one of the Goonhammer guys.
Oh, cool.
He's their art director. He's from Texas, and he knows his shit. Immediately as I'm playing, like Don Huson, who's on my team, texts me. He's like, "Oh, you're playing Robert," and I was like, "I never met Robert before, so it's our first time meeting." And he has a different Thousand Suns list than everybody else. Instead of being time where he's resing a bunch of dudes, he's bringing duplicity.
Interesting.
So he's got 20 scarabs with like
Man of culture.
redeploys and teleports, and he also has a Leviathan Dreadnought, which Armored Content is even more stupid, and a Helldrake.
Interesting choice.
So he sets up to go first and then redeploys. He redeploys a group a bit too close when I got the go first roll, and I run up and just delete 10 scarabs between the boss and my Mega Nubs.
Oh.
So turn 1, just completely backfoot him. And I was able to get some Tremor Cell shots onto his other group of scarabs. So he's just slowed, and then I've also killed the Helldragon shooting.
Yep.
So I force him into a corner that he's never quite able to get out of. He teleports his scarabs at one point, and when there's like 3 of them left, after Gas fights them, and he does take an objective from me in that corner for a little bit. Eventually, those scarabs die, and it turns into just another game of me forcing my opponent into one corner and just getting 12s on my primaries, and even though my stuff's dying, still winning the game.
Just doing what orcs do. So you're pretty high on life. You know, you're what are you at this point? 6-1.
6-1.
6-1.
We're into this is Sunday. We're on day 3 at this point. So I played Robert first thing Sunday.
Oh yeah.
It's an 8-round tournament.
Okay. Oh yeah, because you got the 3. Oh, that's interesting. So before we go into the Harlequin matchup, well, whatever order you want it, what does the Orc versus Harlequin matchup look like?
Depends if it's light or dark. The light matchup is honestly easier because all of their negatives, like, oh, you can only hit me on 4s or whatever, is like...
We only hit on 5s or 6s anyway. It doesn't matter.
Like, the -1 to hit kind of sucks,
Yeah.
but that's just universal with Harlequin. Doesn't matter which one they are. And the light like their stratagem where the light ones can run away, you just need to set up multi-charges. It's not that bad. Just don't put yourself in a situation to get gotcha'd by it. Like, know they have it, and worst case scenario, you make them use it. Like, absolute worst case scenario. He's playing light, so the light matchup's actually easier because there's no chance of accidents happening in your melee trade phase. So this is a little bit more inexperienced of an opponent playing a really good army and knows his army well, but he doesn't know orcs well at all. But I draw everything out for him. We have a really jovial game for like a finals essentially. And like I'm like, hey, here's where my truck's going to be after turn 1 if I deploy my truck here, and he deploys based on that. He phantasms, redeploys.
Smart.
He hides all his void weavers from me, but he's not able to hide everything. He does try to run one thing away. I still touch both, and on my turn 1, I killed a group that he move blocked with, a group of troop, and then 2 boats. He gets out of the boats, and everything else kind of like shoved up mid. Wasn't able to do much with it, but I was able to own 3 objectives and none of the objectives are in cover in this, so it's going to be a bloodbath.
Nice.
Absolute bloodbath of a game. And we begin punching each other, just trading. And he has one bad shooting phase where he doesn't get his Laughing God rerolls. He rolls doubles.
Oh.
So he only gets 3 rerolls instead of 5.
Oh, no.
And then he plays his rerolls defensively, where I felt some of his defensive moves weren't worth it. Where if he just saved them for like his Melt-A-Gun shots, which he did fail a bunch of them, he probably would have like completely countersunk me on his turn 1, and that would have sucked. Void Weavers, even though with the point increase, they're fantastic. They move out, they delete a unit, and they go back to where they were. So like even if they're nerfed, they're still great. So he has kind of a lackluster shooting on his counterpunch, and then I proceed to kind of push hard farther back into him. He made a mistake with a character where it got a little bit too close. He had to do the runaway stratagem, which took away his CP to do an interrupt because he spent all his CP on turn 1 defensive strats. So I'm able to just now free reign all my combats. I set up to get another 12, and then turn 3 gets scary. This is the one where he actually like comes back, kills almost all my stuff, but he doesn't have much stuff left either. And we're starting to get down to the really grindy points, but he still has 3 Void Weavers that are basically untouched.
Ooh, yeah, this is a very close game at the end too.
It's an insanely close game. He has all of his melee on that turn falls short. He's swinging into into T6 things and just not getting wounds and not killing them, which ends up swinging the game in my favor. When once I survived that turn 3 and went into my turn 4, I knew I probably won it at that point. It's one where you control the center objective.
At the end of the game.
Yep. And you get 2 points. You
get 5 points.
So like, I'm sitting there with my one living orc boy on that objective. He hops into the truck that's still alive. He has to blow up the truck, but can't kill the boy that gets out. Like it turns into just this cycle where I finished the game with like 3 models, and he has Void Weavers and a character left at the end of the game.
And that holding the middle is that 5-point swing.
It's an absolutely crazy end of the weekend. End up taking it, and yeah, Harlequins are absolutely brutal. Me as a fellow player, knowing how I would have played it, I should have lost that game.
Did you play Harlequins too? Yeah.
I know how I would have played it. We discussed it, and he agreed. It's just like I really should have lost that game. Harlequins are incredibly efficient, incredibly good. They're a little bit more powerful than orcs, and if he'd played it right, he would have won.
Dang. All right, so orcs. Where would you put them? You know, after all the changes, I know a lot of people have jumped ship from orcs. The freebooter people have gone long ago.
Yeah.
Where would you put orcs?
Yeah. Now that the bandwagon's gone and the nerfs have been applied and everybody else has their new codexes, they're firmly in the B tier. I think I can play them at a level where I can like beat A tier armies, but I can't beat like the straight S tiers. Like it's too high of a hill to climb. Too many things need to go my way. Too many things need to go like against them for it to be completely fair.
But I mean, hey, B tier is still pretty good. I mean, that's above some Space Marine armies, maybe. That's
yeah. The Orc Codex is deep, and I have 4 varied lists that are all very good, that are all firmly in that tier. Like I said, I have freebooters are good, Goths are good, Blood X's are good, Army of Renown's good. You can play any of those armies, and you will do well.
Awesome. So what changes would you make to your list going forward?
Well, as I told you in the plan, I didn't want to play this list in the first place.
Yeah.
But I can play this list in my sleep, so that's why I brought it.
Familiarity is really important. Don't army hop.
Yeah, don't make last minute changes. Stick to what you know. That's what I did. It worked out. But there's one thing I missed, and it was my Scorches on my Mega Knobs. I dropped the Scorches, trying to like get cute with more Mega Cannons and such, and was kind of spreading the list thin. And had I had Scorches, the elf matchups get so much easier.
Yeah.
Killing other trap and such is so much easier. I missed my Scorches, so I'm gonna cut 1 Mega Cannon, re-add my Scorches. I need to find like 5 points somewhere else, but that's fine. And yeah, I miss my Scorches. That's the biggest change I would make. I'm actually thinking about dropping an entire kill rig and adding another truck full of Mega Knobs.
I was just about to ask that.
The kill rigs on GW terrain are not, they trip over each other. Yeah. But and converse of that, one is none. The moment the one kill rig I bring dies.
Yeah.
So it is a difficult decision to make, because 2 kill rigs is what makes
the kill rigs work.
So I'm a little bit torn there. I know I'm going to add the Scorches back for sure.
Yep.
I'm also going to go playtest Marshall's Blood X list, which like it plays really well into the meta. It kills elves like no tomorrow. It's great.
Well, I was about to say we should probably play a game on stream with my new elves, but now I'm kind of rethinking that. No, awesome. That's Jeez. So 4 different armies you can play. The book is so on player place. What would you go with? Probably the same list, or would you do like freebooters or something?
Goths is great on player placed. Freebooters on player place actually does worse than they would on GW.
Really?
There's no real way to take advantage of dents.
Gotcha.
So freebooters on GW actually plays quite good. Same thing with like the Army of Renown, with how you can just like fly your copters up and leave. You can fly over those walls, shoot what you need to shoot, and then get the heck out.
Wow, that's uninteractive and really lame. Not saying that Eldar do the same thing, but
yeah, they said that there's 4 viable lists, I believe, in orcs, and of various types. I don't want to pigeonhole them in there, but like of those clan types, of those army archetypes, there's a lot of pieces that can be swapped out. Like there's Goth lists that play Killicans, and there's for some freebooter lists that kind of like play all the buggies. Like I'm not going to lock things into any particular units, but I would say those 4 archetypes I think are all very valid.
That's cool. So if I'm an orc player who's going to tournaments or struggling with tournaments after the changes, what should I bring?
With Army of Contempt, bring AP, bring Mega Knobs, bring Gaz. Like if Tau is giving you a headache, bring Gaz Call out. If Elves are giving you a headache, look at how broken the Bomb Squig rules are, and then just go like nuke Warlocks because you can.
I don't like that.
Get within 12 inches of them.
Leave the 2 Warlocks alone.
Because like you can literally, so Bomb Squigs ignore line of sight, and they ignore Lookout Sir.
Oh.
And you have commandos at forward deploy that have Bomb Squigs.
Oh my god.
You just like walk up and just characters just die. It's great.
Sounds actually kind of toxic. So that's a whole nother That's a whole nother video talking about crazy orc tech. Maybe we should do another orc video on crazy orc tech.
I'll bring Blood Axes the next time Jake has me on.
That's actually sounds kind of scary. But yeah, no, it's a fantastic event. Congratulations again on your win. Showing that orcs still got it. Thanks for coming on and sharing your knowledge with us. It's always really good to get.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys bringing the consolation winner on.
7-1 bracket. You missed bracket 1 by 1 point, but then that's a whole nother. Then you're swimming in a sea of nids.
But but also like Vegas represent.
Yeah, Vegas.
I was the only Vegas guy up there, and had to represent.
Desert meta. I've been busy learning Eldar and failing.
Well, thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Jake. It's always been a fun time, and I look forward to playing you soon.
Sounds fun. Jake just went to the bathroom, so this is Josh from Black Rabbit Gaming. Like, comment, subscribe, mash that button.
Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you think I'm stupid.
Join the Patreon. All that stuff.